A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Ameen. Now I will translate our prayer in English. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath and who go not astray. Ameen. What is Islam? I would like to take this time before we get started with the program to provide you with a brief glimpse into our way of life. Islam is the second largest religion in the world. Islam means submission to God's will. Allah means God in Arabic. The Quran is our holy book. The original text has never been altered. We adhere to 5 pillars. The first pillar is our declaration of faith, known as the Shahada in Arabic. A Muslim is one who bears witness and testifies that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. To become a Muslim, you need to only make a simple declaration which affirms Islam's absolute monotheism, the uncompromising belief in the oneness of God, as well as the doctrine that association of any else with God is idolatry. The second pillar of Islam is prayer, known as Salat in Arabic. As Muslims, we are required to pray the following prescribed prayers 5 times a day. Fajr, which is the dawn prayer before sunrise. Zuhr, which is the midday prayer after the sun passes its highest. Asr, which is the late part of the afternoon. Maghrib, which is just after sunset. And Isha, which is between sunset and midnight. By praying 5 times a day, it keeps us mindful of God in the midst of everyday concerns. It strengthens our conscience and reaffirms our total dependence and reverence for God. The third pillar of Islam is called zakat, which is our way of giving and supporting those in need. Zakat is our obligation to respond to the needs of those less fortunate in communities. The fourth pillar of Islam is to fast from Ramadan, which occurs once a year during the 9th month of the Islamic calendar and the month in which the first revelation of the Quran came to Prophet Muhammad. Incidentally, Ramadan is the beginning of April this year. During this month, it is, if we are healthy and if health permits, we must abstain from dawn to sunset from food, drink, sexual activity, or any type of negative behavior or things that will compromise our overall mental health and well-being. In Islam, the discipline of fasting is intended to stimulate reflection on human frailty and dependence upon God and focus on spiritual goals and values. The fifth pillar is Hajj, our pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. At least once in our lifetime, every adult Muslim who is physically and financially able is required to make this sacrifice. Both pork and alcohol are forbidden. Muslim means anyone or anything that surrenders itself to the will of God. Muhammad is considered to be the last prophet, where others before him, such as Moses, Jesus, Abraham. So who are we and what are our roles as women? We are Muslim women catalysts. We are not defined by the world. We are defined by our dignity and character. We are honored and respected. When we walk into a room, we are revered by our glow, our intellect, our pure sense of modesty and style. We are looked upon with wonder and amazement. We are strong and resilient. We are independent thinkers. We are mothers, wives, sisters, entrepreneurs, business owners. We are fashionistas, outspoken and bold. We wear our faith 24/7. We appreciate the beauty of our being and present it in everything we set out to do. We speak with eloquence. We are charismatic in our approach. We want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves. We don't compromise our integrity for no one or nothing. We smell good, we feel good, and look good. We don't follow trends, we set our own. We don't regurgitate the rhetoric, we set our own tones. We don't walk behind our men, we walk beside our men. They are our partners in peace and prosperity. We don't need to be validated. We validate ourselves because we recognize our worth. We don't need permission to do what is right for us in our community. We do it ourselves. We don't tear each other down. We lift each other up. We don't break our men down. We lift them up in honor as we are their queens and they are our kings. We don't tiptoe or sugarcoat the truth. We tell it like it is. The beauty of the Muslima is that she wears her faith inside and outside. And throughout her entire journey in life, she honors the oneness of her Creator and knows that her greatness and her truths have always been within. We are Muslim women catalysts. We are more than trailblazers. We are trendsetters. So join us as we share our journey and our joy of our sisterhood connected by faith. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be unto you. Just a correction, and just to be specific, in the beginning you saw our video, and we were talking about Ramadan. As Muslims, we must refrain from sexual activity with our spouse. But on that note, we would also like to pay tribute to our sisters who are no longer in this human life form. Our sister Tahara, I'll show a picture of her, and our sister Laquita. I didn't have a more recent picture of Laquita, but we wanted to ask Allah to pardon them and forgive them for their sins and grant them paradise. May their contributions continue to be everlasting. We love you, Tahara and Laquita. We miss you dearly. And to all the other sisters who have paved the way to where we are today, we appreciate them immensely. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Hallema Sharif, your host and producer for Anything and Everything, the internet-based show which acknowledges that everyone has a story. In June 2020, as part of my company, HS Global Consulting, a women minority-owned public relations and communications firm commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, I sought to create something meaningful and entertaining to help ease the sadness and frustration caused by the pandemic. To date, I have produced over 30 episodes within the following categories: the New Orleans music legends, women catalysts, women of color catalysts and their allies, the artist circle, the brotherhood circle, and now the Muslim women segment, the catalyst segment. And I'm very excited about this one because this is the first big panel that we're doing with my dear sisters. I have interviewed such notables as former executive writer producer for the Martin Lawrence Show, Kenny Buford, New Orleans jazz legends Edward Kid Jordan, Jermaine Basil, and Roger Dickerson, actor, comedian, and Saturday Night Live's first Black actor, Garrett Morris, famed comedian actress Lunel, First Lady Jill Biden's chief of staff and former U.S. ambassador to Uruguay, appointed by President Obama, Julius Reynosa, Kimba Hendricks, Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the House of Representatives, and Suba Berry, Sarah Mount's President and CEO. For the record, Sarah Mount represents the evolution of an enduring legacy supporting and advancing women in the workplace over the past 40 years to the important work we do today and empowering inclusive workplaces for all. For more information about Anything and Everything Media, visit www.anythingandeverythingmedia.com. Well, as I said, we have had some amazing women featured on the Anything and Everything Women Catalyst platform. I continue to applaud them all. But this last day of Women's History Month, I wanted to make this one even more special by inviting my big sisters in faith to join me for our first Women Catalyst panel conversation. My sisters and I have known each other literally our entire lives. You know, I think they've known me when I was in my mother's womb. Couldn't be in my parents' womb, but I got there some kind of way. Our parents knew each other. We grew up together. We worshiped together. We ate at each other's homes. We slept at each other's house. We traveled together. We watched our mothers design our clothes on sewing machines, cook in the kitchen at the temple, and was just mesmerized by the aroma of that mouth-watering bean soup, bean pie, carrot cake, fish sandwiches. Child, y'all don't even know what you're missing. We always had some home-cooked meals, whether they were at our homes, each other's homes, or in the Salam restaurant. I'm sure we all remember that. A little about me and my family's history, and then I will introduce my sisters and allow them to share their journey into Al-Islam. My late parents, Umar and Ida Sharif, continued to have an impact not just on me and my siblings' life, but so many others. We are all at this gathering because of my father, who at the time was known as Emory Humphrey Thompson. And my mother was originally known as Ida Mae Davis. My mother was born January 29, 1924. She would have been 98 years old. And my father was born September 17, 1927. This year, he would have been 95. My father accepted Islam in 1954, and my mother accepted Islam in 1958. My mother went to New York and heard Brother Malcolm speak at Temple Number 7. And from that point on, she wanted to become a Muslim like her soon-to-be husband, my dad. So during that time, the person who wanted to become Muslim had to write a letter to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad expressing their interest. Well, my mother did just that, and she got her X and became Ida X, and the rest is history. She and my father got married February 17, 1959. My father started the first temple, temple number 46 in New Orleans, and he helped to set up the Fruit of Islam, the FOI. He would travel back and forth from Chicago to New Orleans after meeting with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to study and learn more about the religion so he can share his knowledge and enthusiasm to empower other African Americans in New Orleans and other places as well. My father's love and passion for Al-Islam inspired him so much that he stopped playing music in 1955 to teach the religion. Imagine that. A man who was well known at the prime of his life and career, after traveling and working with people like Fletcher Henderson, Fats Waller, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Red Fox, Quincy Jones, and Louis Russell. Louis Russell, if I'm not mistaken, took my father under his wing when my dad was fresh at 18 years old, and he helped him play with his big band in New York. He gave up all that to teach Al-Islam and to empower other Black men and women. My daddy stopped playing music professionally, but he didn't play his horn. He didn't stop playing his horn. He just stopped playing for money. He not only became a proud Muslim man, he was an entrepreneur, independent thinker, and so many other great things. He had a cleaners, a taxi cab company, a bus service, and so many other things, all while selling the Muhammad Speaks, preaching a religion, and whatever else he could do that was productive. The beauty in all this is that he had a woman by his side who believed in the cause, who believed in the mission, who believed in our purpose. She was a registered nurse and one of the best. They met at Flint Goodrich Hospital in New Orleans. He was her patient and fell for her at that very moment. Although she gave him a hard time, she finally gave in, and he had been her patient forever. My mother was a strong Black woman, beautiful Black woman who stood by her man and worked over 40 hours a week to provide for her family, while her husband taught and spread Islam to so many. She embraced his independence, his entrepreneurial skills, and didn't worry about what other women or men said. Of course, there were naysayers who said, Ida, why are you doing all that stuff for that crazy man, working hard all them hours? My mother wasn't a gossiping type woman, and she was careful about the company she kept. Her response to everyone is that he's my man, my husband, and I believe in him. I believe in Islam, I believe in the mission, and I believe in us. Allah continued to bless my parents and their union throughout their journey. In 1975, my father returned to playing music professionally, and it was like he never left. Many musicians couldn't understand how this man who was off the scene for 20 years would come back even stronger. Allah is merciful, and my father always remained grateful and sincere in his purpose. He and my mother had the opportunity to travel the world, meet celebrities. I can't tell you how many well-known jazz musicians who would come to our house during my preteen and teen years. It didn't really mean anything to me because I didn't know who they were. I just figured they were daddy's friends. People like Phyllis Hyman, Billy Eckstein, Nancy Wilson. I'm like, okay, those are just daddy's friends. As a matter of fact, whenever daddy would travel, he would call my mother and say, Ida, I need you to make such and such because Dizzy's coming over. Now, keep in mind, my mother never stopped being a nurse. She worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. But you best believe she cooked like no other. And those musicians always wanted a meal from Ida Mae, especially a bean pie. Even when daddy was on tour, mama was on tour with him, with her pots. Now, that's another story. The bottom line, through the struggle came the relief. And they as a couple made it work in the most beautiful, seamless way. My siblings and I, my sister Layla, my brother Kareem, my brother Jamil, all benefited from this union in their vision as we continue to build, push onward to honor our parents' legacy in our communities, in our businesses, and throughout our lives. We have instilled those same principles into our children, grandchildren, and others. Without the influence of my parents, there would be no us, me and my siblings. And of course, without the influence of our ancestors, but more importantly, Almighty God Allah. We are here to share with you our everlasting sisterhood connected by faith. We are grateful for our parents. We are extremely grateful for our mothers who stood by these beautiful brothers, ministers, imams, and their families to ensure their household and community remain connected by our collective faith. I would like to now introduce my beautiful sisters. Don't we all look all gorgeous and beautiful, y'all? All colorful. I'm going to start with my sister Saidah. Saidah Felicia Munir is 62 years young, married, mother of 4 sons and 15 grandchildren. She recently retired as a social worker from the state of Louisiana Child Protective Services of the Greater New Orleans, Louisiana region. She's been married for 30 years to Elami, who was born into the faith from Gambia, West Africa. Born with the name Felicia Ann Sampson, her family, which consisted of her parents, Yusuf and Eleanor Camilla Munir, and her brother Ibrahim, converted to Al-Islam in 1968. Man, that's the day I was born, girl. As a result of teaching the religion by Honorable Elijah Muhammad, both of her parents thrived in the organization and became high-ranking members of the local New Orleans temple. In 1972, at the age of 12, she formally performed the ritual of requesting membership in the Nation of Islam. In 1977, her family legally changed her name to identify with the Islamic heritage. After the passing of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, many revelations regarding the more traditional aspects of the religion were revealed that facilitated her continued commitment to the faith, and she has continued to practice the traditional version of Al-Islam as a member of the Muslim community here and abroad. Welcome, my dear beloved sister. I know I can't hear you, but I know you said something because you're on mute. On to my sister Sutana. Now listen, Sutana gave me a very short bio because Sutana has a long history and it would take about 20 pages long. So I'm going to go through this short bio, but she's going to tell you more when we do more of an understanding of how we all connected. Sultana Hasan is a native of New Orleans. She has a bachelor's in history from Southern University of New Orleans. She has an MBA from the University of New Orleans. She is a veteran of the U.S. Navy and mother of 2 adult children, Aaliyah and Michelangelo. She has a 30-year career as a management professional for several government agencies. She is currently employed by the Veterans Health Administration as an associate group practice manager. Her hobby is genealogy. Thank you for your service, my dear sister. My sister, Nina Bina. Now listen, when I tell you I thought I was a busybody, this girl is more of a busybody than a busybody. Okay? Born Nina Eileen Wilson, January 4th, 1965, in New Orleans, Louisiana. She was known as the quiet one amongst her loved ones. She ain't quiet no more. As years went by, especially after having been diagnosed with throat cancer in December 2008, Nina feels that she has evolved, rising to greater heights, believing the sky is not the limit. She's a no-nonsense kind of sister. Yeah, she surely is, y'all. Not braggadocious or filled with arrogance, she attempts to live up to the belief, want for your sister what you want for yourself, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Indeed, she does. Her parents, the late Thomas Ali Nuriddin and Charles Nuriddin, instilled in her to always put Almighty God Allah first, emphasizing that Almighty God Allah would always be there no matter what. With so many of life's challenges playing peekaboo in her world, she's learned to count her blessings versus her burdens. With shoulders broad, back strong, arms extended, she's ready for the next battle in her life. For if those women in particular of her ancestral line could survive, then why can't she? Why wouldn't she? Why couldn't she? With each test, she acknowledges if God brought her out of cancer, he could bring her out of anything if it be his will. She frequently says, to God will always be the glory, for he always seems to pour into me an abundant supply of his grace, his mercy, and his compassion. Because of this, Nina believes she is wiser and worthy of God's presence, as well as his presence. On December 19, 1985, Nina earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Nutrition and Institutional Management from Grambling State University. Her degree has afforded her opportunities in hospitals, colleges, and universities, correctional centers, and in the public and private school system. Nina is the founder of several organizations and programs. The My Sister, My Friend organization, which started out being just another poem, then a pledge. Eventually, it flourished into an interfaith organization, which recently hosted its fifth annual Women's Lock-In Retreat. Those are some amazing retreats, just to let y'all know. The continuous efforts put forth throughout the years solidifies the organization's motto: we value humanity, we uplift humanity. We serve humanity because we are humanity. She's also the founder of A Joyous Journey, which hosts 2 women's walks per year. In March for National Women's History Month, and in October for National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and so much more. She's a wife, a mother, a woman wearing as many hats as she can design. And trust me, I call her a fashionista for a reason. Nina considers herself to be a diverse entrepreneur. Topping the list is her love of writing, from poetry to stories to skits. With many side effects from cancer, she ponders over her life of 57 years, and in her quiet time with God, realizes cancer saved her life by allowing her to reflect on what's really important: serving Almighty God alive. There's definitely more to this story, starring Nina Nuriddin-Hodges. You'd simply have to be in her presence for approximately 24 hours to know that she never lets time dictate her goals. And just to let you know, if you're in her presence for 24 hours, you're going to get dizzy. That's another story, okay? Rather, her goals dictate her time. During that time, you will learn that Nina would like to be remembered for striving in Almighty God's lost cause. And if you forget her name, please remember her last good deed. Perhaps it was just sharing her story, a story without a confirmation of ending, yet able to help someone else beat all odds. Oddly enough, she still stands in spite of the stigmas or false labels placed on her as an African American Muslim woman. My dear sister, you're about to make me start crying, all of y'all, but I'm gonna act like a big girl because we got a show to do. Welcome, my dear. Dianne Abdullah Smith. Sister Dionne Zahara Abdullah is a passionate, giving, and driven woman whose favorite quote comes from Nelson Mandela: "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." Isn't that the truth? For the past 25 years, Sister Dionne has played a major role in several educational settings throughout the New Orleans area. Her first role as a supporter in education was at Claire Muhammad School in New Orleans, where she assisted her father, Brother Ernest Basim Abdullah, who was a principal and teacher. Through his experience, she started her journey by going on to serve as the executive assistant to the executive director of a nationally recognized educational advocacy and nonprofit organization that administered an award-winning high school New Orleans Center for Science and Math, grades 9 through 12, in partnership with New Orleans Public Schools, where she assisted in building over $500,000 in funding. Sister Dionne was handpicked to serve as the office manager for the Upward Bound program at Tulane University. This U.S. Department of Education's TRIO program provided outreach and support programs to help low-income, first-generation college and disabled students to progress through their academic journey from middle school to post-baccalaureate programs. After Hurricane Katrina, Sister Dionne was selected to serve as the assistant to the director at the Louisiana Department of Education, where she was able to apply her life principles to ensure that all students, particularly those who are low achieving, demonstrate proficient and advanced levels of achievement on state academic achievement standards. In 2016, Sister Dionne was the recipient of the Golden Apple Award for volunteer in public education. In her free time, Sister Dionne enjoys traveling and reading. My goodness. You know, it's interesting. I've known these sisters my entire life, but there's so many things that I don't know. And every time I do these shows, but this one is even more special, I'm learning so much about you, and I'm learning so much about myself. And it just shows you the beauty of the Muslima. We may be Muslim, but we're still women and we're still human. So now I would like to invite my beautiful beloved sisters to whom I have known, like I said, for over 53 years and counting, to share their journey to Al Islam and how their parents' love for our way of life impacted their lives. And then we will go into a few questions that we will answer. I'm going to start with my dear sister Saidah. You're on mute, Saidah. Let me
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, well, I was a very young child at the time, and my mom was really the person who brought us into Al Islam. It was very interesting because she had a brother we hadn't seen in a long time, and it happened like maybe at midnight. We get a knock at the door. We're in the bed. We jump up, and there's this man at the door, and she's saying, "This is your uncle." At that time, there was some issues with Al Islam, the brothers, with Brother Farrakhan. And apparently, my uncle was close to him, and he was actually on the run. And at being a young child, I didn't understand what was going on. But he was actually on the run and he was hiding. But in the meantime, he introduced Al Islam to my mom. And I think he stayed with us about 2 weeks. And at that time, he taught her about the Quran, about the Muslim, what the Muslims believed, the eating habits, some of the rules, the laws. And my mom converted at that time. And then just as he came, he left. And we never saw him again. But my mom became a Muslim at that point, and she, talked to my dad, and she felt that this was the best for our family, and encouraged my father to become a Muslim also, to maintain our family unit, and we did. And the next thing we knew, my mom was throwing all of this food out the back door, all this pork and sausages and wieners. And we looking out the back door saying, "Where's our food?" And we wondering, can we go and take the food and cook it ourselves and eat it? And she's saying, "No, we never eating this again." And that was our introduction. Me and my brother just was Muslims from that point. But I enjoyed it because even before my parents decided to become Muslim, my mom was always searching for something. So we had been in many religions. We had been Catholic, uh, Baptist, Jehovah Witness, what, just so many. She was always searching, and at that point, she felt that Al Islam was the religion that gave her peace. And from that point, it also gave me peace. So, working with everybody as a child, even though you were a child, you still had so much to do as a unit with everyone. It was a family. Every parent was your parent. Every child was your brother and sister. So it enveloped you with love. And that's how it continued on. And it just, that's how I feel about, it's my family, it's my faith, but it envelops me. And I continue to be a Muslim to this day.
Alhamdulillah. Just for the record, you all, Alhamdulillah means all praises to God. Sultana?
Well, my journey was slightly different. I was born into the religion when my father was discharged from the army. My dad is originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. When he was discharged from the army in the middle 50s, um, I guess he was just a little aimless at the time. And being the youngest of 9 children, He was just trying to find himself once he was out of the army. And anyway, he had a lady friend who was a Muslim, and she had been going to these meetings. And she said she invited him to one of the meetings on a Wednesday night. This back in the day, it used to be Wednesday, Friday. You had your sister, your FY, your MGT meetings on Saturday. Then on Sunday, we had our regular meet. Y'all know how it went. And on that particular night, Malcolm X was speaking. That very night, my dad wrote his letter, and they told him no one was accepted on the first draft of the letter. He was accepted on the first draft of his letter. And he and some of his school friends, Brother Jeremiah Shabazz and others, started traveling the East Coast, spreading their religion. Well, eventually my dad wound up in Jacksonville, Florida, teaching the religion there. And then in late 1959, he was sent to Atlanta, Georgia. And early in 1960, he was sent to New Orleans, Louisiana. In late 1960, I guess he had been here a few months when he met my mother. She was brought to the temple, as we called it at that time, by Brother George the Bricklayer, Hakeem. He changed his name to Hakeem the Bricklayer. He and my mother had been friends since high school. And my parents met and were married on March 7th, 1961. And I was born 9 months later on December 1st, 1961. My father was the second minister of Temple number 46, and he stayed minister for more than 20 years until Minister Imam Amin took over. And I wouldn't change my life for anything. I remember as a young girl on Wednesday nights, I would be the only child in the temple. But my job, I had a job. Everybody had a job. My job was to sit and talk to strangers that were brought in for their first meeting and to keep them occupied so they wouldn't leave. So I was like the person that just kept them talking, because nobody can be mean to a child. And I know this sounds really crazy, but it's really the truth. And I guess that's where I got my gift of gab. I have never met a stranger. I've always been able to converse with people from different backgrounds, different age groups, different ethnicities. And I attribute that to my unconventional upbringing. My parents, my mother was a stay-at-home mom for the most part, but by my father being a minister, she had a lot of responsibilities, because when he would bring people home from trips, or they would have regional meetings. I remember having Louis Farrakhan at the house for dinner. My mother's in there cooking these elaborate meals. Brother Raymond, from the minister from Houston, would come in, and the ministers from all in the region would come in. We'd have these huge dinners, and my sister and I would help my mother serve these elaborate meals to the men while they were having these meetings and strategizing on ways in which they could promote the religion and bring more people in. I think that I attended public school for most of my schooling, but my time at Sister Clara Muhammad school was wonderful. I got to spend almost every day with young men and young women who I considered family, and I still to this day consider them all family. I may not speak to them every day, but if I picked up the phone and called one of them, it would be just like I saw them every day. We never skip a beat. And it's a kind of love and community that money can't buy. But these shared experiences have made our lives so much richer and have made our community so much richer. And I wouldn't change it for anything. I tried to teach my children, even though my children are not Muslims, I have tried to teach them about honesty, modesty, being true to oneself, the foundations of being a good human and part of this human community that we all, and to respect one another. And I think that's, we can't choose for one another. All we can do is show by example, lead by example, the right way. And I have tried to always do that, be an example to my family, my friends, and my community.
I got to give you another shot on that one, Sultana. Thank you so much. As I'm listening to everyone, the connection is clear. One of the funny things I want to say real quick, and then we're going to go to Sister Nina, is our parents got married and had babies right away because we were building a whole nation. So keep the stories coming, but it was a blessing. Sister Nina?
Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. Thank you for allowing me to be here along with my sisters. I became a Muslim in approximately 1971, 72. I was about 6 years old. My brother, who was a year and 7 months older, he went full force from day one. I, like my mother was is the daughter of a Baptist minister. She fought against it. In my way as a child, I fought as much as I could. My brother would actually tell my father on us when we ate pork or when my mother bought Christmas presents. He was the one. So at 7 years old, he went full force. And so in short, my parents separated for about 3 months because of this. She did not want to be a Muslim. And my brother even said, my mother even asked me, she said, well, Nina, do you want to be a Muslim or do you want Christmas presents? I said, I want Christmas presents. My brother went and told on us. So, but it was a pleasure. Once my mother, I was about to use the word submit, but that's in the common term of submit. And coincidentally, my brother and I had a discussion about submit. In this case, it wasn't a negative submission. It was submitting to the will of God. Even her father, my maternal grandfather, asked her a series of questions in reference to how my father treated her. And every answer that she gave was positive in reference to how my father treated her. And he told her, then follow your husband. Now, that was coming from a Baptist minister. So they got back together. It was 3 short months. It seemed like forever for me as a little girl, not seeing my dad as much as I wanted to. In fact, my mother claimed to this day that I faked being sick so my dad could come over. And she said I was fine until he got there, pretending to be sick. But then once he showed up, I regurgitated it. Of course, that just made him feel even better. Oh, my baby. And then it made her kind of look at me as if to say, okay, Nina's turning on me. She's joining with her brother and her father. So it's been pleasant for me. The religion of, as we transition from Islam to Al-Islam under the leadership from the late Honorable Elijah Muhammad to the late Wardi Muhammad, it was not an oppressive situation how some people may look at Muslim women as being. What you see now is strong women who stand up for themselves, who in the introduction, Hallema, you said something about we walk with our men. We're not walking behind them. We're and if we happen to be moving a little slow, maybe it's because we're tired. But like many animals, like the fleece, like the geese, they behind their men, but they're pushing them forward. They're encouraging them. So that's what we do. And that's, as my mother made the transition, again, it was not compulsive. She went full force, becoming a lieutenant with the sisters, working right under Saidah's mother, Sister Captain. And I believe Sutana's mother was an officer also. My father was a squad leader. And so we took the religion very, very seriously. We were serious about it. And as you all said, we each had responsibilities. We learned more about duties in the kitchen. We learn how to be women, how to be leaders, because even as little children, being in the Muslim girls training program, we had to learn. We were actually taken out of the public school system as you know it today. We were taken out of that because we were taught do for self, have things for ourselves. So there was no sexism in doing for self. I was one of those that was, I would say, extra blessed because Maury Alexander, who's now an imam, a minister, Nasheed Salahuddin, he brought my father in, Thomas Ali Nuriddin, who was formerly Thomas James Wilson Sr. He brought him in, and at the time that was called fishing, where you find people and you bring them in. Again, it was not by force. So when my father became a Muslim, he felt like it was good for him. So he told his sister, pretty much all of his siblings, but one at the time, and his brothers and his sisters. They were all Muslims, all but one or two, I should say, at the time. And cousins. So I have an extended family, an extended bloodline outside of my sisters in faith. And we are really close. Again, like Sutana said, we don't see each other on a regular basis, but we close. When we see each other, we had a family reunion. And this is the proudness that I can stand today at 57 years old and say, I am still a Muslim. And I appreciate everything that has been done to make me, or to allow me, or to say that Almighty God, Allah, has bestowed the favor and the grace upon me to be a Muslim. My prayers that I represent well. Thank you.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. You definitely represent well. We all do. And once again, these stories, see, they're all connected. All connected. Dionne?
Assalamu alaikum, my sisters. I am truly honored to be here today. Al-Islam offered me family. My mother passed away when I was just 3 years old. So Al-Islam became a part of my life. I was just 5 or 6 when I came in. So it was just a blessing to be in an environment like that, like my sister Sutana mentioned, that you just were taken in. The Hasan family is one of the families that there was no distinction between me and them. I was one of their sisters. So the community was the place where I needed to be to grow and be nurtured. My father, who's 80 now, he ran Clara Muhammad School. He was the principal at Clara Muhammad School. He taught at every subject, including foreign language, music. He was the nurse. He was the janitor. He was the bus driver. So he did this for well over 30 years. And sometimes I would catch him sleeping. And I would ask him, I said, what happens if you get sick? And he'd say, there are 3 of me. It's me, myself, and I. He said, so if one of me gets sick, the other 2 better show up. So I must say that I am a proud student of Clara Muhammad School. And if we were put up against any public school student, we would surpass them. That's the type of education that we got there. It wasn't just the basic English, science, math. We went over and above whatever it was and surpassed them. So that journey carried over into my life as I became a mother, and educating my daughter became a passion. I actually served in the school system as a PTO president, not because I wanted to or had a desire to, or even know that that was the journey that I was going to be on. But as soon as she entered school, I was the PTO president. There was a need for that parent involvement, that community. We have to be there. So if my child was going to be there, then I needed to create an environment for her that from which I came from, basically. So that's what I did. And so it came from a couple of parents, me, my husband, and two other parents, the five of us looking at each other, till standing room only. Because that was the type of environment that she needed in order to come through. So I served at the elementary level, and I treated everyone with dignity and respect. That is part of Al-Islam through and through. And those things carried on. And so they heard about me when my daughter transitioned to middle school. So literally, when I got to the middle school, they said the principal introduced himself to me and said, "Oh, we're having a meeting. We want you to come sit in on this meeting." I'm thinking, wow, I just met you. I don't even know. What are you talking about, a meeting? I go into the meeting. He said, this is Dianne Abdullah Smith. This is the lady from, Brownsville School. And we just want to introduce you and say you're our new PTO president. I said, whoa. So it has been such a blessing to be and to have that spirit that comes through us from Islam, that foundation again that we has supported us and brought us to where we are right now. So I just want to say to the beautiful women who taught me everything, take this opportunity to honor them and say thank you. Thank you. Because Al-Islam saved my life in so many ways, from so many distractions in the world, and made me more compassionate about my people. And just supporting me in knowledge of self. So thank you to all the women out there who supported me along the way. Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah. Listen, I'm just sitting here. I was sitting here taking some notes. Thank you, sister. I really appreciate that. And a lot of us are saying a lot of the same things. We're saying Al-Islam. We're not saying it, but we're saying it. Al-Islam, the Quran, our community they're resources to us. We wouldn't change it for nothing in the world. You're right about that. We have had safe spaces before safe spaces were even a thing. People talk about safe spaces. Well, listen, this is our safe space, and we've had that a long time ago. Our brothers and sisters worked hard. Our parents all taught us. Dionne's father, Brother Basim. I mean, we were taught by each other and our parents. Our education, as you said, surpassed all. You can say that again. I mean, how many people actually study the dictionary? Us. We find words within words. It's like we don't just take things at face value, but we are literally deep thinkers. And you can spot us anywhere and be like, what kind of person is that? As Ashford and Simpson say, our foundation was solid as a rock, and it still is solid as a rock. That's our bond. So on that note, we're going to start with some questions, even though this was like a wrap up, but this is going into the questions. So the first question, and we're going to start with Sutana. is, how would you define the Muslima? Some of that has already been shared, but how would you, in 2 minutes, define the Muslima for those who don't know?
I'm going to use myself as an example. I would more or less, if I had to label her or give her a tag, I would say I'm more of the modern Muslima. I'm a hard worker. I'm true to my faith. I'm not perfect, but every day is a chance to do better and to learn. I try to be a positive force wherever I go, in whatever endeavor I'm challenged with for that day, that hour, that week, that year. We try to walk in such a way where our faith is our shield. So when you look at me and you wonder, if you're looking at the news and you're wondering about Muslims, when you say to yourself, well, that doesn't jive what I know about this person. Because I take that back to when I started working at the Veterans Hospital. I've worked at different agencies, but I went there in 2013 from the Army Corps of Engineers. And when I arrived, the day I arrived to start my job, one of the ladies told me, we did not know, we looked at your name, they told us you were coming, we didn't know what to expect. We thought you was going to come in here with a hijab wrapped up from head to toe. Maybe you were part of Al-Qaeda, because this was, they were having a lot of uproar in the Middle East. They said, we didn't know. No one wanted to share an office with me at first. But within 3 months' time, just through my work ethic and the knowledge that I had of contracting at that time, I became one of the go-to people in my office. And they were very mindful when they had office gatherings. They were mindful of that I didn't eat certain things, and they would always make sure that there was something so that I could participate in the little gatherings. So I'm going to say, for me, the Muslima is a strong woman. She's a vanguard for herself, her community, and her religion.
I totally agree with you. Sister Nina?
I would describe the Muslim woman. I like Sutana more, the modern day appeal, but with the basic characteristics from, again, our foundation, but as being modest, as being pious, as being role models. We have been put out front, not by choice necessarily, and again, not by any means of oppression or compulsion, but just in what we saw from the women and even the men. We were respected. We were children who had our roles, but our roles were in a leadership capacity. So we were highly respected from where we came from. We were highly respected. Everybody had an assignment. Whether you had a list on a board, you just knew certain things came with being a Muslim. So we were groomed, but in a positive way, not in any way of being in a cult. So we as women, we want to continue, and I think we've done a pretty good job being not arrogant, but compassionate, being of service, always remembering that everything we do is fi sabilillah, or for the name of God, in the name of God, and to continue that. So it's a journey that we've been on, and it's a journey that's never ending. Even when we pass on, when we actually make that final transition, it's a journey that, inshallah, God willing, will leave behind for someone else to pick up on. You're muted.
No, I was saying that is so true. I was taking some notes. That is so definitely on point. I was telling Dionne.
May I add one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
To be leaders, I'm thinking about the women in our holy book, the Holy Quran, the Khadijas and the Aishas and the Mariams, which is Prophet Esau. You all may know him more as Jesus, his mother, but to be role models. No, we're not mentioned by name in our scripture, but to have those characteristics. That's what we want to strive for. They were not perfect, but they were beautiful examples of what we should strive to be.
That's an ideal example with Sister Khadija and all the other sisters who are mentioned in the Quran. I mean, they were leaders, they were businesswomen, they were entrepreneurs, they supported their men in their endeavors. Leadership. That's something that we all bring to the table, is our sense of leadership. Dionne?
Yes, thank you. For me, I would define the Muslim as humble and fearless. As a woman, we were taught to keep our voices low, to lower your gaze, and when looking at a member of the opposite sex, but we also learn self-defense, and we were proud, not in a boastful way, but in a best representation of ourselves. So what a blessing that is, to be both humble and fearless. You say, how is that even possible? It's in our humbleness that our strength is portrayed, that it comes forth by what we do, by the way we present ourselves. So just representing yourself in the best way possible, always. That's just the way we were taught, no matter where you were. I was the PTO president for the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level of my I did not go out and set out to do this. When I made the transition from one school, when my child made the transition from one school to the next, the word had already gotten out that my child was coming and I was coming with her. So those doors will open. The reputation, I didn't ask for this. It was just, it had to be something from within that they saw on the outside. And I'm grateful and humbled by that, and stayed in my lane, not trying to get in the principal's lane or, but just being a blessing for those that were there. I was just so fortunate to have that opportunity for her all of those years. Like I say, I didn't ask for it. And in some ways, I didn't want the responsibility. But guess what? I was already prepared for that, coming from Clara Muhammad School. We were already prepared for this. So the door opened and I had to respond. And for that, I am grateful to be there with my child and her even wanting me to be there throughout this whole experience. So I am just truly grateful to be able to share this with you guys, because we don't get a chance to converse on this level too often. Yeah.
Thank you, Dionne. And this is why this conversation is so important. Even though it's like Sister Nina said something earlier by email, that it's like a reunion, and it is a reunion. And those who are watching are getting an idea of what that world was like for us and what it is now, just to give them a glimpse. Saidah?
Okay. So the Muslima for me is a lot like what Dionne is saying, what everybody has said. It's a responsibility. And it's something that we have to carry from childhood to adulthood till we meet our login, in the end. We are taught to take care of ourselves, take care of our family, take care of our husbands, take care of our parents. That's a big responsibility. Everybody can't do that. But as Muslim women, we were taught how to do that, how to take care of ourselves physically, our health, our food, through our food, what we ate, what we brought into our minds. That's a part of the Muslim. Making sure you're whole so that you can take care of others, because in the end, that is our responsibility. To be proud and knowledgeable about what your responsibility is. To not shirk away from being a parent, a mother, a wife, a daughter, a friend. The Muslima recognizes that we are the glue that really holds everything together. And we know that we need to be that glue so that the world can go on, so that things can move forward. It's a very humbling, responsible position that a lot of people don't understand. But as Muslim women growing up, MGT classes, Muslim girls training, that was drilled into us. We are responsible for a lot in this world, and we have to be strong enough to maintain it, or the world would crumble. And how do you do that? In a respectful manner, in a modest, being humble, being grateful to even be in that position. How do you do all of this in this world? Muslim girls training emphasize that. And I carry that now. That's what I feel. He's still on me now.
Mentioned earlier in the intro, and just throughout, the role of women in Islam, but the role of women in America, but everything we do as Muslimas is definitely from the Quran. We are a personification of that, and that's what we must continue on that path. When you think about Ummi, some people call their mommies Ummi, mother. We have the Ummah, the community, so it's the womb. That Ummah, that is the nurturing aspect that we have to continue to nurture ourselves, our children, our families, and our community. So we take that literally, like seriously, not just with each other's children, but other people's children. And so we may come across as motherly because that's just who we are. So on that note, let's go to the second question. Challenges faced as Muslim women in the workplace and our careers. How are Muslim women stereotyped? And we're going to start with Sister Nina, followed by Dionne. I'll jump in for a second, followed by Sutana and Saidah, in that order.
I'm actually retired, disabled, but this is one of the reasons why I say cancer saved my life, because the workforce was quite challenging. Sometimes, no matter how good you think you are, or even that you are on the job, there's some underlying discrimination. And sometimes for me, it was not that I was African American. That was the lesser challenge. I was about to say problem, but their problem, not mine. The part of the challenge was that I'm a woman, I'm a Muslim. I didn't announce it, but they knew I was a Muslim. Somehow they figured it out. They saw the Nuriddin. Well, I wasn't going to change my name because of their problem. It just meant that I had to work hard. A lot of times as African Americans, we say we have to work extra hard or twice as hard. Well, as women, we have it all. We have to do it. We have to do even more than twice. So my biggest challenge on the job or in the workforce was that underlying discrimination. I remember being fired from a job. I almost said the place, but I remember being fired for a job. And I called myself going down to EEOC to figure out what happened. They asked, was he African American like you? Yes. Was he this like you? That. Then it dawned on me, religion. I have no proof. My two not superior officers, but my two direct supervisors had no problems with me. The only thing I could think of was that African American woman, Muslim. As I moved on, I had to realize I had to move on as I moved on. And the further I got away from that job, I began to feel better about myself because I actually found myself getting sick, physically sick. And I had to realize that this person didn't make me. He can't break me. I have to hold on, even if it means I have to move on. So it enabled me to become stronger, but I had to hold on to my faith. I wouldn't change my religion for a job. It may have meant that I had to create my own job. And in time, we had to do things. We may go on a job, but then we have something else that we're doing in order to almost rebuild ourselves so that we don't fall apart. So that underlining, I thank that person for firing me. It saved my life. Thank you.
I have a feeling we're going to have some similar stories on this one. Dionne?
Yes, that is very true. What Nina was saying. The comments I face in the workplace when I had my garment on was, "Oh, you have a lot of clothes on. Aren't you hot? So you don't eat pork. What do you eat?" As if they're not other, food groups. It's just very interesting, the stereotypes, how they portray us. And so y'all pray all day. I like those bean pies. you know, we overcome those things. It's just, yeah, it's comical in a way, but it's like, really, we're so much more than that. The challenges I faced as a mother with my daughter was undoing what had been done at the school, in the school setting. When she got home, we had to reteach or unteach what she was being taught. By my father being an educator, I guess it just came naturally to me to fall into this teaching mode. So she'd have school after school to unteach everything that had been taught. But a beautiful journey nonetheless. We are stereotyped in many different ways, but we are so much more than that. We're so much more than that. The mothers, the educators, the doctors, the lawyers. We are so much more. We are so beautiful. And we're human. We're human beings who happen to be Muslim. And that's my journey.
I know Dionne and all of us could probably say so much more because there are just so many examples, you know. And since I'm next, I'll just quickly jump in. You know, I felt like I've always had to create my own pathway in the workplace, you know. And unlike my sister and some of you, I didn't attend Sister Clara Muhammad School or Muhammad University. You know, my parents wanted me to, but when we came back from Chicago, I ended up going to a private school, Catholic school at that. Muslim girl in the Catholic school twice, in middle school as well as in high school, and ended up going to Xavier. So I found myself having to teach Islam all over again because they had it completely twisted. And so I think as women, Muslim women, we have a triple win. We're women, we're minorities, our names, our clothing. A lot of times people look at women as being submissive and they figure, oh, if she's submissive, maybe, you know, they'll do anything in the workforce. No, not us, because we don't compromise our integrity, like I said earlier. But like with that cultural wear, you know, every Muslim is different depending on where you live. In America, we're African-American Muslims, and we do things differently. Some of us cover, some of us don't. But even if we're not covering, we're still modest. And so, like to Dionne's point, they were like, why you got all them clothes on? But so what people don't understand is if you're in the Middle East, and I know this from experience living in the Middle East, the women wear the abayas. And it's hot, and it's black. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, all that black. But it's actually keeping you cool. It's keeping you cool. It's protecting you from the sun. So imagine 130 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 to 70 degrees Celsius, and it's burning up like a sauna. And people were like, why you got all that on? Well, if you try to put it on, you realize, oh, I see. And so when you learn about us and our way of life and the cultural differences, you know, it makes you appreciate, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, because people just automatically judge the book without even reading it and getting to know us. A quick story I'll tell. When I was living in New York, I was working for a company I will not mention. And it was a big deal. I was working at a major firm, and this is not my current husband, but my ex-husband. My last name was, it was Hallema Sharif Clyburn at the time. And so I was working on this big piece of business that was bringing money in for the company. And someone told me, hey, you know, this is a new client, and, you know, what do you think about dropping the Sharif? I said, what do you think about me dropping you? And those are my exact words. Well, anyway, I didn't work there after that. But, you know, I'm like, I'm not gonna change who I am for the sake of your money. And that's why I started my own company, you know, and because it made me realize, you know, going back to our foundation, we were working at a very young age. We were taught to be independent thinkers. We were taught to be entrepreneurs. So all that came in handy. So I got more stories, but I won't even go into that. We're just going to go on to Sutana.
I think the biggest challenges are being true to self and faith simultaneously. And I'm gonna reflect on another challenge I had, and it wasn't in the workplace. It was actually in college. As a senior, I was a history major. You have to do a final senior thesis, and you have to have your subject approved by your advisor. Well, I wanted to write about the journey of al-Islam in America. It was not approved. So, but I was adamant. He said I could not find enough. I had to prove to him that I could find enough information. I had enough documentation. But see, he didn't know what I knew. I knew anybody and everybody that had anything to do with the promulgation of Islam in America. I had access to them, either through my dad or somebody else. I actually even had taped testimonies that I brought to him. He was like, "This is fantastic." So when I finally finished it, my project was the only one that was presented to the faculty of the history department. So that just goes to show you that we have to follow the path that Allah God has set for us. Don't compromise what we know to be right for anyone or anything. And I have consistently throughout my life, through all my various iterations of my career, always remained true to what I know to be the right thing to say, do, and present to people that I work with or work for. And just striking that balance between faith and true to self, I find to be the most challenging. But if you just stick to what you know to be true, what we've been taught from a young age, it all works itself out in the end. And you know, Allah never gives you more than you can bear. And we know we can bear a lot. We have wide shoulders and broad backs. So I think that, not only in the workplace, but even in educational environments where you think people are supposed to know better, they don't know better. So we have to teach them and show them how to be better. Thank you.
I mean on that. Saidah?
Yes. The challenges that I faced later in life, because initially my father followed what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught as far as have your own. So I basically worked with my dad for most of my young life until I was in my 30s. That's when I went into the field that I went into social work, and I had actually fostered for years. So it was something that I really loved, knew a lot about. So even though going into the workforce, I was a Muslim still. I really didn't have a lot of pushback on anything because by that time, the world knew about Muslims. Wearing your headpieces wasn't a big thing. I had more trouble in school, like Sutana saying, I had more trouble in school than in the workforce. Because in school, children can be very, very hostile because they don't understand, they don't know. So that's why I had more of my challenges. But actually in the workforce, with the work ethic that I had developed through all of these years, working with my dad, working with my family, that's not the easiest place to work either. If you've ever worked with family, you learn a lot of things. So I just used a lot of those skills when I went into the workforce. But the main challenge that I found was a lot of people didn't know a lot about Al-Islam. So you're teaching a lot. They have misconceptions. Do y'all believe in God? Why you don't eat pork? Why are you fasting? You know, you you fast all of those days, those type of things. But it's more of a teaching, and I really felt honored to show that our religion was something that any person could do. Any human, any person. It just was a way of life that I enjoyed. So that's what I had for my for that question.
Thank you, thank you. You know, as you think of the word Muslim and Islam, you know, by definition, it's one who submits himself or itself to the will of God. So when you think about humanity and those who do believe in that higher power, that's what we're all doing by definition. Even the animals, even the trees, you know, with the different seasons that we have, they're submitting themselves to the will of that higher power. So what we're inviting into you when we say our way of life, it is the way of life for humanity when you think about it. Whether you put a name on it for being Islam, but that submissiveness to that higher power, to Allah, to God. The next question we have is, what women, other than our mothers, grandmothers, aunties, or whomever, had an impact on your life coming up? And I have a feeling we may have some similarities here, of course. And we're going to talk with Sutana.
Now, this list could be long. The first woman I can think of is your mother, Sister Ida. Sister Ida, as you let everybody know, was a nurse, but Sister Ida was my nurse because the doctor she worked for, Dr. Seagrave, for many years, was the pediatrician that brought me into the world. So I've had a long connection of seeing our women as productive members of the workforce. And Sister Ida never spoke above a whisper, but that whisper had an iron will. I don't know how she did it, but she would say something. It wouldn't be above a whisper, but you know she meant business. Another person who influenced me a lot was Sister Janet. I don't know if y'all remember Sister Janet. Her husband was Brother Earl. Sister Janet was probably one of the first college-educated Muslim sisters that I can remember. She was at one time she was teaching at UNO, and this is when we were young girls. And I think I always looked up to her because education has always been a foundation for my life. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I never get tired of reading. I never get tired of exploring things. My children are the same way. They call me an egghead because, you know, I watch Jeopardy every night, you know, answering questions. But she made me want to be a lifelong learner. And I really, really, really appreciate that. And I think one of the last other people was Sister Aziz, Omar the Pie Man's wife. She, even though Omar the Pie Man was hawking the pies, Sister Shirley was in the kitchen cooking those pies. She was baking those pies. And that was a dynamic duo. So those are three sisters that I could really say influenced me early in life.
Like you said, we can go on and on. Thank you. Saidah?
Okay. One of the sisters that influenced me was Sister Tahara Nadir, who's passed away. And I say she influenced me because she was older than I was. And at the time, even though at the time, even though I was close to Sutana and Nina, and, those sisters in my group, for her to be an adult, because she was maybe 8 years older than me, to take time with me, um, made me feel like she was my sister, more than in the faith, just really blood close. So we did a lot of competition together. As a young Muslim girl, we learned to cook everything from scratch, bread, the cakes, the pies. She did a lot of cooking. I would work with her, help her. I learned so much from her. And that continued on. Even like I say, when I was 12, and someone mentioned that you had to formally write to express your desire to be a Muslim within the Nation of Islam. As a 12-year-old, I did it, but she was coming in as a young adult. I don't know how old Tyra was, maybe 19, 20. Yeah, coming in herself. So she was writing her letter at the same time. So we were like writing the letters. You had to write perfectly. You couldn't have any mistakes. So I'm writing. I may have written a letter 3 times. She may have written it 7. But that was camaraderie. And that continued on. She was just like a big sister. And everything that we did, the dress, we sold our own clothes. We would sew together. You tried all these. I don't know if you all remember when the whiting fish came, and they started making all these recipes.
Yes.
Fish sausage, the fish cookies, the fish ice cream. That was a little fall. I couldn't take that. I didn't try it, but we participated in all that. The bazaars, if you all can remember how we made all of these beautiful things, sewing, building, cooking, and the whole community in New Orleans would come to the Muslim bazaars and buy all our goods. We did a lot together with that. Sister Janet, like Sutana said, she was very, very educated. We were used to the motherly sisters, and she came in to give us a broader perspective of the world and what we would probably be going into once we left our cocoons. So that was she was a big influence. And really just people who were not here locally, a lot of the sisters that were in Chicago, where Elijah Muhammad and Wardeen Muhammad lived, a lot of those sisters, because they were higher in that echelon of the administration. Different people's names. I can't even remember most of them now, but we knew a lot about them also. Well, that's it.
That's a lot. Makes you wonder how many women, and you're not taking away from any other women, because we all have stories, whether we're Muslim or non-Muslim, but how many women can actually share such stories like this? The fact that we really had a village, and I mean, it was so much deeper than the village. The 4 of us, the 5 of us here, I mean, um, we had that support from our community and from other communities out of state. Sister Nina?
Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. I'm listening to the role models. I didn't realize, I knew Sister Janet well, but I didn't realize, I guess because I was younger, about the education. So anything that was presented to us almost on a platter, I'm speaking in my food service mind, on a platter, decorated, garnished, that was impressive to me. One of the sisters that had a serious impact in my life was Sister Hanan, Sister Edna. She worked in the kitchen. And Sister Tahara, who's also my cousin, Saida's friend, she was under her. Sister Wakila, we call her the bean pie lady, to see them every day working in the kitchen, the way everything they did was to the standard of a perfectionist. That's what we were taught. You know, every cookie looked the same, every oatmeal bar looked the same, every bean pie looked the same. And so we were there every day. We saw that if the brothers were practicing marching, or if the women were practicing marching, we saw the perfection. So as children or youth, if we were paying attention, who couldn't pick up on that? That became natural for us. I was about to say innate, but that's born. But it felt like it was innate because we saw this on a regular basis. And also, Sister Beatrice, we all have that in common. I remember Sister B being very stern. She was one of the first people I met. And it's so funny because my brother Wayne teases me even to this day that I became a Muslim because of the bean pies. Well, that may be true. So, but that's not why I remained a Muslim. I wouldn't mind having a bean pie right now, but that's not why I remained a Muslim. Also, Sister Captain, we called her Sister Captain, Sister Saidah's mother. She was very firm. She was very firm, no nonsense. But there was a loving side to her also. So we knew we were loved. We knew when to get out of place, when to be in place, how to sit, how to do this. Because she wasn't just a captain, she was a role model. She exemplified. It was no nonsense. It wasn't like, I do this, but y'all better do this. It was, this is the way we're going to do this. We. Also, Sister Irene, this has always impressed me. I am my parents' youngest child. It was my brother and I. So I didn't see my mother breastfeed. To see Sister Irene Salahuddin, formerly Irene Alexander, and I tell her this all the time, she had 3 daughters above me and then a son a little under me, and then more children. But to always see her breastfeed, I often said, when I become a mother, I'm going to breastfeed. Now, that may sound silly, but to see that was impressive. So when I became a mother, my one and only time, my son is 28, I remember breastfeeding. And and it really made me feel even closer to look down and watch him eat. That was because of what I had seen as a mother. You earlier, Hallema, you said Umi. When I saw that was impressive to me. So we had the seamstress, we had the cooks, we had the leaders, we had the mothers, we had so much going on. And again, everybody out was our mother. We called them by different names, but we held all of the women to the highest esteem as we would our mother. It was no disrespect to anybody's mother. You know how we say we don't play that? Well, they didn't play that. We knew. So we were loved, and we felt it all. We had the discipline and the compassion. It was well balanced, in my opinion.
Your opinion is 100% correct. You know, we had all that and more, and it was like a one-stop shop for everything. Even if we were in New Orleans, if we tried to go somewhere and create some nonsense in Chicago, Atlanta, it wasn't going to happen. It was the same blueprint, same platform, same bean pie. Matter of fact, all this talk about fish sandwiches, it's not that fish ice cream though, and bean pie, I need a sandwich quickly, something. We have a lot of similar stories, and I'll just quickly go through this. You know, of course, my mother, and Sutana, thank you for saying those beautiful sentiments. And I would watch her, and I mentioned this in the story when I was giving an introduction about how she truly supported my father. And some people would be like, he ain't working. It's not that he was working. He had about 10 different jobs and was making money. And out of the 4 of us, I'm grateful that my parents were able to pay for my college education. That was a blessing for me. And to watch my mother support her husband and support the family, a lot of those qualities are in me today as a woman. And I don't look down on women who do that. You know, I've always had this corporate thing about myself. I don't know where it came from. It's just in me. But my mother, there was a sister in Chicago, and I cannot remember her last name, but her name was Sister Hallema, my namesake. And she was an older sister. And at the time, I think she must have been like 70 something years old. But you know, when we were younger, everybody looked 80 and 90, and they probably weren't even that age because we didn't have a concept of what age was. But Sister Hallema was just so soft spoken. I could see her now, you know, so serene. She had that grandmother appeal. And girl, she made some good chili. I can taste that chili right now. I'm making myself hungry. Tahara, boy, I think back to my days at City Hall. Tahara would come to my office every 5 minutes. And if I was in a meeting, because she was such an entrepreneur. Like, I've always been an entrepreneur, but she made me push harder because she always had an idea. And so Tahara comes to City Hall. I know she back there. So you better tell her I'm here. I say, just tell that woman I'm coming. I'm in a meeting. It's okay. I'll come back. And this woman would literally come back and wait for me to come out my council meeting. Now that is crazy. But nobody but Tahara. But I just miss her so much because she pushed me to be an entrepreneur. She pushed me to think even more about ways you can turn something into nothing. You mentioned Sister Beatrice, and her name, you know, later changed to Sister Amatullah. She lived with us in Chicago, and we moved her back to New Orleans. And, you know, that was a blessing to us, even though she kept us in check when Mom and Daddy were out working and stuff. Boy, she popped me upside my head because she said I was tender-headed because she used to do hair. And she just had this way about herself that was gentle, but at the same time, it was firm. You mentioned Sister Irene. You know, Sister Irene, man, Sister Irene is my cousin. And we didn't find this out until later. I was doing some volunteer work somewhere, and I saw her name, and I'm like, you look like my mama. And you, Thibodeau, when we started connecting the dots, like, hey, cousin. So now cousin sister. So she too is another great example. Sister Miriam Raouf, you know, Sister Miriam Raouf, Sister Shahida, your mother, Nina. You know, I think about all these sisters and so many others who have had an impact on my life, your lives, and so many others that, you know, we owe them so much. Dionne?
Yes, I'm just going to give some shout outs. And first of all, let me give a shout out to Sister Hasan, Sister Ella Hasan, one of my mothers. Yes, a very strong woman in her word. She said what she meant, and she meant what she said. Very direct, but just thankful to be in the company, thankful to be a part of that family and treated as part of the family. Still to this day, I go in and I see the dad, and I said, hey, Dad, how you doing? You know, assalamu alaikum. Because that is literally, that is the way it was. Shout out again to Sister Hanan, Sister Shirley, Sister Patricia. These people were very instrumental in my life, in my upbringing. Sister Zenobia. You all know me. I needed what I got from you guys. You all were there to push me, guide me, protect me, and provide me with the knowledge and the courage that I have today. So I pull my strength from you guys. And I am humble to be a part of this reunion. Very humble. So thank you to those women in my life, women entrepreneurs. I didn't think I could do it when I started my own business. So I'm just so thankful to be a part of the Muslim community, to be a part of Al-Islam. It's just been a blessing for me.
And thank you, my dear sisters. You know, you all are an inspiration to me. And I'm not just saying this for the sake of being on camera, but you all have played a role in my life. You know, I do consider you big sisters, and I'm grateful for your contributions and everything that you do and you continue to do. Our next question is, we're going to share our journey as a woman in our career, in our community, in our businesses. But how, with all the stuff we just shared, as far as making bean pies, bean soup, sewing, and a bunch of other things, going on a cruise, just doing all kind of stuff, and maintain a balance in our life. And, you know, this is women in general. You know, we're multitaskers 24/7. But how do we do it as Muslim women? And we're going to start with Sutana.
I guess I'm a modern woman, and I feel like we can have it all. We can have our faith. We can have fun. We can have our careers. We can be mothers. We can be business owners. We can be politicians. We can have it all. But when we put God, Allah first, we may have some challenges, and we have to use those challenges as learning opportunities. But for the most part, we find success and fulfillment in all that we touch along the way. You know, after college, and I went into the Navy. I was an air traffic controller. I mean, I'm one of those people. I'm like a jack of all trades, a master of none. Anything I put my mind to, I never tell myself I can't. Everything is, oh, I think I can do that. You know, all of the tools. Like, I'm a great cook. If I'm gonna brag on myself, but I learned that at my mother's elbow. I learned that from Sister Hanan. I learned that from Tahara. That was just something that was bred into me from young. I never not knew how to cook. I still sew. And my daughter is like, Mom, how do you know how to do all these things? My father always said, necessity is the mother of invention. Remember that there were not many places where we could go and buy modest clothing, so we had to create our own. It's not like today when you can go in the store and find outfits that meet our criteria. We had to make our own clothes. We couldn't just go out to restaurants unless we were going to Chicago and going to Salam restaurant. We couldn't just go out to restaurants and eat because we didn't know what was going into the preparation, because we had dietary restrictions. But this is a long journey, and we will not stop learning. We will not stop teaching. We will not stop passing our legacy on. And when my days on this side of the journey are over, I want to be remembered for a person who walked the path of righteousness, of modesty, did well for her community, and did well for her family. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you. I guess I'm next, huh? I like Sutana, am also a modern woman. I'm also a little busybody. I'm not gonna lie to you. My motto for a long time has been keep it moving, and I literally do keep it moving. My oldest son says something. My oldest son is 32, and I have a young one who's 21. And he says, Mom, that is so profound that you've been saying this since I was born. Because I really do. I always go back to with much difficulty comes relief, as we're taught in the Quran, because nothing painful will last forever. And as we said, Allah doesn't put too much on us that we can't bear. We're the ones that put too much on ourselves. So that's the way I look at it. But I'm always thinking of ways to do things. Allah always comes first. When we think about our prayer 5 times a day, and we can admit sometimes we aren't going through the motions physically for salat, but we are making salat. There have been times, and I'll admit it myself, when I was working 24/7 and I just stayed in bed, made wudu, stayed in bed and made salat. I didn't go to sleep, but I made salat because Allah always comes first. And we have to remember that the beginning, the middle, and in between and the end, that influence is so important. I use the influence of Al-Islam in all things I set out to do. When I think about my writing style, I'm a writer as well for my profession, but just putting together PR plans and communications plan, that sense of humanity comes out in everything that I say. I'm like, where did that come from? But I know where it comes from. I lean on my foundation, and that's my sense of independence. We're cooking, I'm traveling, but we're still having fun. I come from a musical family. Of course, I'm going to shake. I just shake with modesty. I ain't going to be showing too much when I'm shaking, but I'm still dance. But my balance is just natural. Sometimes we don't know how to take a break. We have to but I try to make room for more ideas to come. I wife, mother, grandmother, this show in particular is so funny, between me with a job in higher education. Yes, I do work in higher education. I have a business. I have this show that came about 2 years ago. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing 2 years ago? Even this segment here, I've literally interviewed 14 women in the past week on the weekend. I must be crazy. But no, I'm not crazy because it's in me, because this is something that I want to do. And so when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it because our word is our bond, no matter what. But it all comes from my foundation in Al-Islam and my upbringing. And I mean, it's just something, as we say earlier, it's something I would never trade for anything in the world. So alhamdulillah on all that. Saidah?
Yes. Growing up as a young Muslim, I'll never forget. Elijah Muhammad always said, Muslims will have friendships in all walks of life. He didn't say we would just have Muslim friends. Friendships in all walks of life. And I always valued that. We were always taught how important education was. We were told we could not be a dummy and be a Muslim. We had to educate ourselves. That's always been important. He always said that we could do for ourselves. We didn't have to depend on others. Whatever we was good at, the community would want that too. Be entrepreneurs. All of these things were positive. All of these things took us from children to adults. We just had to know we could work with anybody. We just needed to know what they were about, because we could find out that the differences did not outweigh what we as human beings value. So that made us able to work with anybody. My parents worked with anybody. My dad was an entrepreneur. He didn't just work with African Americans, with just Muslims. A lot of the people he worked with were from other ethnicities. So I always felt that Al-Islam provided for us to be humane to all people, to all faiths, to all religions, faiths, religions, ideas, as long as they were righteous. Follow all laws. That's what we were taught. Follow all laws of this land and other lands, as long as it did not conflict with what we had been taught in our religion. So that to me made the world open for me. There was nothing that I couldn't do that was righteous within our righteousness. So we can have a good time. We can go out. We can have different friends. We can go different places. You may not be able to eat the food at the restaurant. Mm-hmm. You need to know what's, if it's pork or whatever. But the world is open to us. And that's what I love about this religion. I feel I can go anywhere. I can meet anybody because I'm human. I'm going to treat you as a human. If that's not what you're into, then maybe we shouldn't be together. Watch who we are with. Those things were so basic in the religion as a young child. And then that's what I said. Once we realized that our religion at that time was geared more to us as African Americans building ourselves up versus just the normal religion. Once Wardi Muhammad brought us to the fact that, Al-Islam is a national religion with millions of people all over the world, that just was an extension of what I had already learned. It just made it more, not less. We got more information. We got more knowledge, more understanding. But it made the religion full circle. Full circle. I just feel that Al-Islam, remembering God all day, because the devil is always here. So you have to remember God. Al-Islam give us the opportunity to live a righteous life, but a happy life, a peaceful life. That's what this religion really is, about peace. People don't think that. But this religion is about being peaceful within yourself and giving peace to others and maintaining peace throughout the world. I don't think there's anything better than it,
I don't think so either. Sister Nina?
I wondered if she thought I was the devil for a minute, because when she said something about the devil, she kind of like leaned in. I'm thinking, no, not me. but I'm not perfect. But what I would like to say is that I have an organization called A Joyous Journey. And just like my sister, my friend, it came out of me trying to figure out, Almighty God Allah spared my life for a reason after cancer. It's been almost 13 years. And I don't take it for granted. So for me, I think that's where some of my balance has come in, trying to figure out what to do, why I'm doing it, how come I'm still here. Not that it was a punishment for anybody who has made their final transition, as we would know it, but that there's more work to be done. Even with the disability, I can't do things at the pace I like to do it for different reasons, emotionally, physically. But I'm thankful that I can do some things. So this is how I've been able to birth or conceive, as in conception, of some of the programs I've been able to put together. And it requires a lot of balance, not just from me, but the team that has that I've been blessed with to be able to do certain things. Small or great, every step makes the difference. So the balance for me is improving on the things that I did, say, 10 years ago, having more time. The balance for me comes in that I have an opportunity to do something better. And not just I as in Nina, but to be able to better serve Almighty God by serving his people, by making a difference in the world. And I always say, if you don't have enough room on my epitaph to put my name, just remember what I tried to do. Because my name is not as important as me trying to change the world. And my father used to always tell me, he'd say or ask me, you must think these cakes can save the world. I said, actually, I do. I believe, who I don't know anybody who doesn't like cake or something creative, even if they don't like the taste or can't eat it for different reasons. Maybe just to look at it will make them feel better. So that's where the balance comes in for me. Now that may sound like an imbalance for some, but maybe that's that artistic side that I'd say I like to be proud of, to be able to say I'm one of God's blessings, but I want to be a blessing to the world. I want people to see that not only did Nina survive this, but she's thriving. Not just as Nina, but as my sister, my friend, doing for others. Again, that's the balancing act for me. And I'm thankful for it.
And we are thankful for you. Dionne?
I am just so thankful for this reunion. It brought a lot of things, a lot of connections back that I had not made that connection. Maintaining the balance in career, family. I had not made the connection that they all lead back to the foundation of Al-Islam. And that's so beautiful for me. Wow. Thank you, Hallema. Part of the foundation that was laid by the sisters, by the MGT, the Muslim Girls Training, was to stay away from gossip, even in the workplace. Dress professionally. Speak professionally. The very essence of who we are came from the foundation of Al-Islam, which caused us to be on a higher plane and be proud about that, not in a boastful way, humble in our delivery, but a beautiful thing. I'm thinking about this as I'm speaking right now to you. But what a beautiful experience. What a beautiful the knowledge that we can use, that we're using in our own lives. We cannot, the blessing of that in itself is just so powerful to me. Setting a good example, as my sisters have shared. Treating people with respect, the same respect that you want to receive. This all came from Al-Islam in the teachings from the Quran. Keeping yourself clean. I remember the sisters checking our nails to see if our nails were clean. Your breath smelled good. They thought because we had these head wraps on that our hair wasn't combed underneath. I beg to differ. Not only was it clean, you may have had it pressed, curled, your hair, entire body was clean. What you fed your mind had to be on a higher level. And it all carries through in the way we present ourselves. So it was just a natural flow for us. So what a great example. I am just so blessed and humble to be here with you, with my sisters. My big sisters. Okay. But this is truly a blessing to be in the business setting, to be able to be there to help um, develop and help that business grow and finish or complete its goals and objectives. And then say, how can I be more effective in this way? It's all about, Islam is all about elevating yourself and elevating others. So when we come into a setting, it's not about what we can take. It's how can we make this better? And so I am just so blessed and humbled to be here with my sisters and to share my journey. So thank you, Hallema.
Thank you all. And thank Allah. Thank Allah for giving us these stories and the opportunity to have the foundation that we came from. You know, this has been a blessing, and I'm still learning so much I didn't know. We're gonna end shortly, but before that, I have one more question, and I'm sure this is a really key one. What type of legacy would you like to leave for women in general, not just Muslim women, but not just women, but women and men, because they too are part of the equation? Saidah?
Well, I'll say what I always tell my children. Allah has a purpose for us, and we need to follow that purpose. A lot of issues come about when we don't. So follow the purpose that Allah has made for us. We all have it, and it's positive and it's good. That's what I would like people to remember, and that's what I tried to do. Follow the purpose that Allah has set forth for you.
I agree 100%. Sutana?
I'd like to leave a legacy of education and sharing, to be remembered as a person that was knowledgeable, but we don't own any knowledge at all. It is knowledge, whatever knowledge we have, it's our responsibility to share what we know, especially if it's for the good. Now, if it's for evil, keep it to yourself. But if it's for the good, it's our responsibility to share it. And while I have this final mic, I want to reach out to my dear beloved sister Dionne. Dionne lived with us for a number of years, and she was truly one of the Hasan children. When my mom combed my sisters and I hair, she was combing Dionne's hair. Whatever we ate, she ate. We slept in the same bed, took the same baths. She has always been considered one of our siblings. And to this day, we share a closeness. And as she was speaking about it, remember my mother, I was getting so emotional, but in a good way. And I just want to thank you, Hallema, and thank Allah for my life, our lives, and everything that we've been through. It's been a blessing.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Listen, I'm just letting y'all know that I may end up start crying. Tears are coming out right now, but we're only human. And that's a good cry. It's a good cry because this is our legacy. And we know what it means to us. So I'm going to be quiet and let Nina speak before I end up going to get some Kleenex.
Assalamu alaikum. I like to leave a legacy, and I'll use the theme, something similar to feed off of from our retreat a few months ago. Walking with faith, our purpose, our plan, our path. I'd like to be remembered for that. Not that there's perfection in it, but the fact that I did my best with what I know to walk with faith. Some may say walk by faith. I'm saying walk with faith. When you walk by faith, you don't want it to leave you. You want to be in line with it. And I want to be in line with those things that Almighty God Allah has in store for me and my sisters and my friends and my brothers and my sisters in general, Muslims and non-Muslims. And the things that hold dearest to my heart or things that have to do with interfaith, loving everybody, maybe not liking everybody, but trying to love everybody. If let's just say I choose to have a feeding program, if that happens, I don't want to say show your Muslim card. That would be like saying you can't eat because you're black. Whites only, black only. So if I fix food, I want everybody to be able to come and partake of the meal. If there's a retreat, whatever it is, to be able to say this is interfaith. It doesn't mean that I'm not holding my religion high or putting it aside. But as far as my legacy, I want to be remembered for being able to have some value in the things that I tried to do. Because we are humanity. We all are human. Value each other. Forget the labels. Forget the labels. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Forget the labels. You hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Dionne.
I just want to be that person that continues to provide education, that continues to be an advocate for education. We were taught to, again, as we said, strive for perfection. We may not meet it, but we want to be striving perfection. That's just the way we were taught at Khair Muhammad School. And so I stand before you today feeling grateful for the discipline that we were taught, for the courage that we were given. There are so countless skills that I was given, and I can't wait. I'm pouring that. It is my intent to pour that into those that are coming after me. I know how to sew, knit, camping, plan the banquet, cook every kind of food from A to Z, speak a different language. Let's just share it. I want to share what I have with the world and just continue to be a resource there for support. Yeah, that is where what I'd like to leave, just to be known as someone who loved you. Yes, someone who loved you through this sisterhood. Thank you, Hallema.
Thank you, Dionne. Thank you, Saidah, Nina, Sutana. I love you all. You already know that. And I guess that leaves me to run my mouth. You know, we've said this, but always keep Allah first in every moment in our lives. It's a must. Life, of course, life has its challenges, but those challenges are our paths to our growth and our development. We got to learn how to appreciate our differences and allow those differences to connect the dots to our common humanity. You know, I write several months ago, maybe almost a year, I started writing these daily affirmations, more for me than anything. There are affirmations that I believe in creating my own affirmations, because when you create your own affirmations, not taking anything away from anyone else, it uplifts you more, and hopefully, you know, it'll uplift someone else. But I write these daily affirmations Monday through Friday because that's the work week. On the weekends, I just do whatever. But I've been doing this for several months, and I send them to folks and share them on social media and business circles. So I'll leave you with a few. To women and our men, be true to who you are. Don't give up on the things that you truly want in life. Walk with ease, stride with purpose, and go for that touchdown. Make sure your purpose is purpose driven. People talk about purpose all the time, but really think about your purpose. What is that purpose? We know what our purpose is. We've been talking about it the entire show. Saying no, especially as women, sometimes can eliminate, as we say from New Orleans, buku unnecessary headaches, okay? Lastly, don't allow life and its circumstances to overwhelm you. Take ownership. Manage what's manageable. I'm going to close out here, and I'm going to thank everyone on the panel, and I'm going to go through my spiel, and when I close out and when I'm done, I'm going to ask Sister Nina to lead us close out in a dua, which means prayer. So my dear sisters, as Nina says, my sister, my friend, this has been such joyous, loving, rewarding, uplifting. I got so many words in my head. Heartwarming, well-informed conversation. And that's the beauty of this platform that I started 2 years ago. It allows everyone to tell their story and allows us to tap into a myriad of diverse worlds. I thank you all for being my friend. I'll do my best not to cry. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being like a family member. Thank you for being my beautiful, beloved sisters. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for the love. Our contributions, my dear sisters, will always be everlasting. And I thank you for being a Muslim woman catalyst, because we truly are more than trailblazers. We are trendsetters. I love and I appreciate you all from now into eternity. And thank you to those who have tuned in and stuck it out with us for Women's History Month. And we tackle so many topics. This one is near and dear to my heart. This segment will be available on the Anything and Everything Media YouTube channel, as well as on major podcast platforms. To learn more about Anything and Everything Media, visit www.anythingandeverythingmedia.com. Until then, next time, keep it moving. But before we keep it moving, my dear sister Nina is going to call us out for dua prayer. Closing out.
Oh Allah, tunnel my thoughts of degradation. Separate my ill from my will. Guide me with guidance and strengthen me strong. O Allah, open my heart and comfort my soul, for I am determined to reach the goal. O Allah, embrace me with your words. Let them wrap knowledge around me, steering me in the right direction with layers of protection. And oh Allah, I ask you for that protection. I will not curse thee that curses me. I will not shame thee that shames me. Otherwise, I will be the blame, for my abode will be none other than your flame. O Allah, I must remember to call your name, not only when I feel rejected or neglected or disrespected. It is you that I put my trust, for I must. I ask for your favors one by one and day by day. So please, Allah, bestow them upon me as you see just. O Allah, I humble myself to thee. I will bow to thee, whether alone or lonely. When I close my eyes, Allah, it is you that is there. When others turn their backs on me, you are there, for you are my only witness. O Allah, I will call your name and hope you answer. I know you hear my cries from way down deep. As for my tears, they will keep coming, though they don't always show. I cry tears of joy which don't always flow. But my tears of pain, I can't explain. They come and they linger like a singer singing a song, savoring the melody for all so long. Oh Allah, I pray that one day my tears will go away and disappear with all of my fears. Oh Allah, I call your name. I call it this morning, evening, noon, all the same. Not sure what I prayed sometimes, but I know I was no longer afraid after praying. Oh Allah, you heard my cry. You answered my call. I felt your presence through it all. I pray to you for myself and to all of my sister friends. May we all go one by one, standing before you. But let us all stand together in your name. Ameen.
Ameen. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be on to everyone.
Walaikum
Wa alaikum
assalam.
assalam.
Peace be unto you.